Hello, listeners, watchers, and subscribers. Welcome to another chapter in the SDR DiscoCall show. If this is your first time joining our show, this show is all about sales development reps or business development reps working in the world of tech sales, where we meet lovely people from across the globe, learn about their stories to give you insights as to what is it like being an SDR in tech sales. And my name is Neil Buyan, your host on this journey together. So with today's guest, this is somebody that I connected with a few weeks back, and as we all know in sales, referrals are the best leads that you can get. And we had a previous guest, Sid. Shouts out to Sid, and at the end of his show I said, do you know anybody that would be good to come on our show? And he said, yes, I've got somebody. He actually sent me quite a few people, actually. But as we know in sales, that only 11% of people ask for sales referrals. So, 92% of customers are happy to give them. So in other words, make sure you ask for the referral. But referral guest, could you please introduce yourself? Who are you, sir?
Hi, hello, Neil. Good afternoon. And hello, everyone. I'm Fabio Menga. And I also like to thank you a moment to see that we have been referred in this occasion. I am Italian, from the south of Italy, and living happily in Amsterdam, Netherlands, since 8 years now. I have the opportunity to live abroad since like 13, 14 years now. I experienced myself living in London, UK for sometimes like 8 years precisely, before I moved to the Netherlands, in which I find myself very happy and pleased.
Love it. Fabio, welcome to the SDR DiscoCall show, and thank you so much for joining on today. And as a gentle reminder for our listeners, if you're listening to this in your local podcast platform, please make sure that you give a rating and subscribe. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe down below. So, Fabio Menga, working out in Amsterdam, who is the company that you're currently working for, sir?
I'm working for BizzMine, known as well BizzMine by Vivaldi Software, recently renamed only BizzMine Software, simply because it's been merging a Fortino investment group. So BizzMine is a Belgium company that basically streamline all the process when it comes to process, procedures, and policy within the company, all in one platform, mainly for pharmaceutical, medical device, logistic, or chemical, for instance, that will probably benefit out of the auditing that get from a third company. So,
love it. Thank you very much for the introduction. So a workflow platform to help with your QMS. Absolutely love it. And as we all know, this is a live show. That was probably a prospect giving you a call back, Fabio. That's probably what it was.
Did you see that? Yes.
Yeah. He's like, prospect, ring me, leads, meeting. But anyway, coming back to yourself, Fabio, like outside of sales, what do you like to get up to? What are your passions and hobbies and interests?
Well, I'm very social person and very passionate people. I do like cooking, so I like to source my ingredient, go to the market, smell it, taste it, and process it. Very often share with friends, which they say that tastes better. Then I like to play squash regularly and do yoga. Yoga is something that I do beside. I think it's really benefit also my day-to-day at work. Because I think it really reached sort of a balance within myself and kind of a protection towards the rejection and the negativity that can be found in a day to day. So yeah, I practice yoga at least once a week, and I think it really generates that sustainable mindset, which I'm pleased to have found I needed myself. So yeah,
I love that, dude. And I think in this show today we should it would be great to get some tips on you from what you've learned from yoga and, kind of going through this job and the things we face as an SEO. So we're definitely going to dive into that as well. But Fabio, and for all our listeners and watchers out there, normally at this point, what we do is we visit our guest's LinkedIn profile. And as a gentle reminder, you can always find the guest LinkedIn profile URL in our show notes in the podcast and on our YouTube channel if you want to reach out to them, connect with them, or pick their brain on anything that you've heard on the show. So as we can see, Fabio, yourself, you are a sales representative inside sales working at BizzMine for the last 4 months. But if we look at your colourful history, you've been in quite a few different places and industries, which is quite cool. But you've worked as a junior account manager, you've worked as a manager of events, you've been a sales manager, you've worked as an SDR at Huawei. I had to get that right because I got it wrong before we got on the show. Thank you very much. SensorFact, again, that's kind of where we met Sid as well back in the past. You've been a food and beverage consultant on freelance. And, you know, for the last 4 months, being an enterprise business developer at BizzMine. So, Fabio, it'd be lovely to know, in your own words, walk us through your journey of like how you started off where you were to where you are today, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Well, as you could see, indeed, from the profile on LinkedIn, yes, I think it already tells enough. It's all human-related job. I started with a junior account at Luxina. Yes, there was an opportunity to set up a market in the Netherlands, so locally. But I come from a background. Probably let's step back. I come from a background where I've studied international and tourism and hospitality management in London at the Middlesex University, in which, of course, I developed, yes, the English language, but as well as all, you know, the best part of the job I'm doing at the moment, because I found myself living in UK already at the age of 21. So, yeah, I think the best time of my life, it was in UK. I am a sommelier as well, so I love wines, and thanks to the education and then the passion of wines, so of course I ended up in the hospitality, and I enjoy it very much, and I still do. That's why you see on the curriculum on my profile that I'm consultant, because I do like to advise, consult, or help out people that probably are, you know, developing a concept or, you know, implementing a new idea. So it comes easy for me to help them out, simply because I'm hands-on and very approachable as well in that sense. While I was doing this job in the hospitality, I always came across, you know, different type of client, different type of people that, of course, unknowingly at that time, it was, you know, boosting my knowledge. So I was able to sit down and customize small or large menu with, you know, the appropriate wine pairing that was go along with it. Maybe sit down and arrange a corporate event with big, large company that will probably need like a daytime meeting rooms with X number of IT infrastructure, maybe a coffee break, lunch break, or an entertainment event evening afterwards. That kind of things that always involved me being around and surrounded by people with the multitasking skills, with the, you know, ability to work under pressure, with a good sense of auto-motivating myself as well, in a way. Which the sad part comes when the COVID arrived precisely 3 years ago. And I was working in Villa Cuckoo, lovely place, great opportunities still, but due to the COVID, things have changed. So I readapted myself. By readapting myself, I didn't want to give up all the experience and the knowledge I had, and all this, you know, ability to interact to any type of prospect in a way. So that's why I considered to move to the digitalization. At that time, of course, COVID has created major issue and you know, problems, but something good along the way. We have noticed that the digitalization and the ability to be in contact remotely with people all over the world was something that was, you know, growing, and so it got my attention. Without having much experience, then I approached Huawei, in which I was like MQL SQL in a way, so basically qualified leads. So there were lots of calls, and a lot of no, and also a lot to learn when it comes to the company per se, because it has a quite huge selection of product within their portfolio. So it was very challenged to keep up with the level of the competences and the ability to perform well that I wish to. So I think I've learned enough just to move forward to another company, we'll probably have a mono product and be able to learn and develop from it. And that is when I moved in SensorFact.
And if we pause you there, because there's a lot that I'd like to unpack, there's quite a lot of, different experiences and things that you went through. So if we go back a bit, like studying in the UK, like working within hospitality, and then also, doing this, in essence, like consultancy as well, like helping people with, like the menu, like the process thereafter, like you was really helping people out on that. And then, if I get it right, Fabio, like that's something that you still do today, like also alongside your job, you can also like help out with beverages and food consultancy. Is that correct?
Yes, I do.
Cool. I love that. So a question that, I'm a big advocate of side hustles and side gigs as well. And, a lot of our listeners may also be like in a primary role, what they're doing as an SDR or BDR in a company. And they want to maybe explore doing a side hustle as well, but they're probably scared of, well, how the hell do you balance that out? Would you mind elaborating as to how do you balance your time doing that, dude?
Yeah, sure. Happy to do so. How do I balance the time? Well, I don't see it as balancing the time, but see it as a natural thing to do. So let's say you meet with a friend, you have a beer and you talk about what have you done last weekend or what you're going to do the next weekend, or maybe hobbies and personal feelings. So I tend to probably sit down, have a glass of wine and discuss how's your business, how's it going. So I think the time invested is still a leisure time in a way.
Yeah.
But the topic changes. So I don't really do any effort to make time for this. So it's kind of a pleasure to have a chat with you, for instance, and hearing you out how you're doing, and whether there's anything that probably can be done differently. Very often there are some a situation where we constructively talk about whether there are any things that could be done differently, or for instance, when it comes to networking, people there might skilled on a specific role, I might advise to talk to one another so they probably find a win-win and help one another. So in essence, what I'm trying to say, Neil, is I don't really do any special things to make this work. It just happened naturally.
I love that. And you're right, because when you're passionate about certain things and you just do it in your day-to-day life, or like when having a discussion, it doesn't primarily have to be like, okay, I have this set hours that I have to speak to these people and do this thing. It just happens like through general conversation where you can then give advice and consultancy on it as well. I do it day in, day out of my life whilst here at HappySelling. I connect with people, have a couple of chats with somebody, like give some advice, catch up. Like I do it with CEOs all the time, like what you're doing on your business. And then I give them consultancy advice, sometimes free, sometimes paid, depending on who the person is or, what type of help they need. But it just happens naturally. And it is sometimes hard to just structurize it in your calendar. But the way that I kind of do it, Fabio, is if I give you an example, on a Monday, I do everything media related for my business. So like this podcast. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday, I do training private clients. And then Thursday, I call that SDR therapy. And basically, I just have a calendar reminder that if anybody just wants to have a chat with me to get advice or information, that's when they can book it in my calendar. So I kind of structure it so that that's the day that I give them the help out. But outside of that, I'll always have conversations outside of Thursday, which may then be on any of the other days. But I love that. Like you said, it just naturally comes and happens and flows. And then flowing, back into your story, like working at Villa Cuckoo and working within that team. And then you said, okay, the pandemic hit. And you said something very powerful where you kind of had to adapt. You didn't want to lose the things that you had learned over those years. And you kind of wanted to see and go into, another role. And that's kind of where you entered in the world of sales development at Huawei. What did it feel like, or what kind of skills were you able to transfer from what you were doing before to then go into this tech job?
Yes, exactly. I discovered that the experience, the background I had in the hospitality, it was crucial or fundamental for me to succeed in the sales industry. Ultimately, the empathy to speak to people, the skills to listen to people, or being able to be multitasking or working under pressure, like I mentioned earlier. I think all those natural and soft skills that come with it package, I think was, let's say, 50% of the job. Of course, I needed to learn the operational system, the CRM and stuff, but I think what makes it sales, it's just, the inner of yourself that, reach out to the person, what is impersonal over the phone, the sound of the voice that makes the difference, the opportunity to be able to be listened and to gain a few moments of a conversation that, land to another minute of conversation. That I think the hospitality was able to help me out succeeding in this path.
I love that. And because, you know what, if we're totally honest, so just giving a time reference to our audience, we're currently mid-November 2022. I had to remember the year then. And the world is going through a change at the moment. And when the pandemic came, to Fabio's point, a lot of us had to adapt. I had to adapt as well. I went from a face-to-face sales trainer to a remote virtual sales trainer. And I had to kind of think of, what skills that I have doing stuff face-to-face, but then have to put that into a digital environment and keep people engaged as well. And, Fabio, coming to this time in the world where there is some uncertainty in the market, we're seeing companies with people being lost, some people joining companies, etc., and people moving about. And it's something I have to even think about now, looking forward to 2023. For somebody that was able to adapt during a pandemic and then moving into a different, company or industry, what bits of advice would you give to that person who's thinking, do you know what, maybe I have to do the same, Fabio? What things should they consider about adapting, or how did you go about adapting yourself?
That's a very good question, Neil. That's a very powerful question, because I also would like to add something. Out of all the experience you have noticed, I made a change at the age of 35. So I was pretty stable and strong into the industry I was already. So for me, the effort was quite impactful. And I was reminding myself every day the reason why I've chosen this path and what was my ultimate goal, to generate and keep motivating myself. And the message I will probably share here to everybody is be goal-oriented. Be goal-oriented, set goal strategies, that will allow you to achieve this. And don't give up easily. Don't give up easily, because it's the learning path. That's exactly where you start learning. At the specific point where you just give up, or all of a sudden you don't believe yourself anymore in the process of that selling, that would generally, make you lose as well, or it won't lead you to achieve neither your personal objective into the process, neither the sales probably, and the finalization of the deal.
100%. Grazie, Fabio. I really, really appreciate it. Understanding and remembering your why and your goals, and having that with you. And you know what? It's a natural thing that happens, peeps. If you're listening, watching, and it happens to me multiple times, and it also happens to people that I've coached and managed as well. So, sometimes we may start off with a particular goal, either wanting to get into a new career, or earning a certain amount of money, or traveling around the world, or doing something that gives us fulfillment. And then sometimes what can happen is the world completely changes, and then our view of that future and goal kind of gets put into a shelf where we can't see it anymore and we can't reach it anymore. And, for every person, they all have their own whys and wants and things that motivate them. So, historically, Fabio, I've never been a person that's been motivated by money. I've been more motivated by, coaching someone to do something and then seeing them become successful, and, what I told them worked for them. That's what gives me the motivation. But then obviously, if you're running a business and, you've got bills and overheads to pay, then you need to bring in money as well as that. And sometimes you go through tough periods where you're not earning as much, or, you're not getting as much fulfillment in what you're doing, and you kind of lose and forget your why. And then you can become very stagnant. And you can, to your point, as you said, you may stop believing in yourself, or, being able to motivate yourself. And this is something that's happened to me like earlier this year. Like we've gone through so many shifts in this world as well. And I came across, and if you don't mind, Fabio, I wanted to share it with our listeners and watchers. I came across a really freaking awesome book. It's a book called A Search for Man's Meaning, and it was created by an author called Viktor E. Frankl. And Viktor was an Auschwitz concentration camp survivor. He became a renowned psychiatrist. And like kind of, again, I'm not going to go through, like do a whole book review on here, but what kind of Viktor gave us, Fabio, was, you know, the experiences of somebody that was captured in World War II, placed into a concentration camp. And the cool thing about this book was not only does he give the story of what happened, and he goes on to say that he's not talking about facts, figures, numbers, or anything like that. He was just the human experience, right? Of going into a concentration camp, along with lots of other prisoners, with the SS, with all these army people, you know, a world going through a complete change. And he like noticed how man changed from, you know, the captors to the people that were captured, and how they changed through certain scenarios of famine, of, you know, people not knowing if their family was alive. And he saw the darkest depths of humans at this point. And he kind of went on to this cool story where there was this one guy who was positive as hell. He spoke about, you know, by a certain date, by, you know, March of that year, he was going to see his family again. The war would be over and everybody would be happy again. And what he'd noticed is as the date drew closer and closer, this person's, you know, spark kind of died out. It got to the point where he didn't think, you know, it was going to happen. But he always said, like, you know, the war's going to end, we're all going to see our family. And then he just became more recluse. He became very silent. He became quiet. And then literally a month before, not even a month, like a couple of weeks before they actually were released, he passed away. And Viktor goes on to say, like, it wasn't nothing about this guy's health. Sure, they were all famined and, you know, they were starving and they were overworked in these horrible conditions that I wouldn't want anybody to be in. But he said it was his morale, his mindset, like he kind of lost his will. So he lost his why. And what Viktor goes on to say is, you know, with a lot of us, our whys and our motivations are different from each man to the next, but all of us will go through an element of suffering, you know, and we have to be worthy of our suffering. So what I'm trying to say is if we go through a pandemic or if we go through a recession, we all get hit hard. And to your point, trying to stay motivated and adapt and asking yourself, okay, what can I do to make myself happy? It's that growth mindset of, you know, there is a vision and there is a future that is attainable and that you can get. And, you know, when you get through that tough shit period of your life, you know, and you come to somewhere where you're happy, if it's a job or if it's a role or if it's going somewhere else in the country or traveling or anything like that, you can kind of stand on top of that mountain and look back, think like, rah, I went through all of that. And this is why I can now appreciate the thing that I have. You know, I'm really sorry that we've completely gone off in a different meander, but I just wanted to share that story and just see how does that resonate with you?
Thank you for sharing. No, absolutely. I think it's still absolutely related to what we just talked, actually. Because I think something I wanted to add to the story, which also I think it's something nice to share with a junior SDR all over, that whenever the switch of mind happen or that intention comes to you, whether you wanted to start doing sales and might be a new adventure, a new path to you, I think something you really need to have in your mind, stick and strong, is the determination. Because in a situation where probably drastic action or a new path, like for me at that point during the COVID has been started, surely it wasn't easy. Surely it wasn't something that would probably, it would be granted for me unless I would demonstrate that I was capable. So I just share with you all the soft skills that have helped me succeeding. But I have to sit on that chair and start calling to learn the different type of people you're speaking to and to overcome the obstacle of feeling rejected as well as to embrace the KPI, which ultimately at the end of the month or quarter will probably result if you have done or reached your goal. So my advice is, whatever it is that you do or for whatever company you are performing, try to stay focused, positive, and more importantly, determined on the action you perform.
I love it. Stay determined and focused. Yes, 100% favor. Thank you so much. All right. So coming also back to your career, like where you're saying, you'd worked at Huawei for a while and then you thought, you know what, it's time to move on and then take this into another tech company. And then you moved into SensorFact. What was the story like for you at SensorFact?
It was a great adventure. It was a really great adventure. I think I can speak up I've learned lots of things, lots of good things. I can give you an example. So I was able to work within a team. So I was part of a team, mainly looking for a specific country. And within 3-4 months, I was elected a team leader. So I was basically working with the same people, but genuinely either because of my experience or my love for the coaching per se, in life, spiritually and mentally, I was able to keep on in line, to follow one single goal, to feel the competitiveness within the sales, but at the same time to use it constructively, so that can one another feel motivated by the result or by the achievement of one another. And I think it was overall, including the other country. Our company was able to show me the importance of, to help one another within the sales. So I had the opportunity to meet good people, human people. So I think there used to be a way of saying, like, when you don't make numbers at the beginning, make friends. Sooner or later, that will come very handy along the way. So, and that will happen in a way. So we ultimately helped one another. Doesn't matter whether it was Italian country market or was the Netherlands or Spain, etc. So we were there as a human being, listening to one another and questioning, how did it go? What did he say? How short was the sales cycle, etc. So just to probably steal some knowledge, learn something to one another. And that's it. That was the only purpose, I would say.
I love that. I love that. So when you're not making numbers, make sure you make friends. And I think that's a very valid point. And I'd love you to elaborate on that a little bit further, Fabio, because, a lot of our SDRs or listeners and watchers will be like, right, it's my first couple of months in the door. I can see all my colleagues, they're booking these meetings, they're making numbers, they're hitting their KPIs. And they may be like, well, what about me? So when you say like make friends, like in what way? Because again, we have to like differentiate between like, okay, so you're my friend, we go to a bar after work, we talk and, we go out on the weekend together, versus how do we befriend somebody within a business and how do we do it appropriately? What would your advice be?
I think in that way, I will use the word respect. So I would say probably, you make friendship, like respect people within your context. So getting to know them on a personal point of view, what is that like? How do they, approach the work day? What makes them succeeding? How long they've been working? What did they do in the past? Get know on the personal point of view, and then relate it slowly by slowly to be of professional and work experience they had. I think getting to know as a friend is literally allow them and vice versa the opportunity to count to one another. That's what I mean when it comes to friendship. Yes, you can have you can also go to the bar and have a drink if you feel like, but the purpose doesn't have to be go to the bar, have a drink, and that makes us friends. But having a contest or a number of topics, then whether we are in the office, home, or at the bar, with a beer or without a drink, we will be able to constantly learn, educate, and get stronger. And I find more and more that the common things that keeps us together.
I love them apples, and so it's great to have that on board as well, because that gives us some solid advice of like how to interact with our colleagues, how to build our relationships, because ultimately when working in sales, the overarching topic is relationship building, and whether that be with your prospects, internal stakeholders, or external as well. And how to navigate those sort of conversations. Because I think with myself, when I first started out in sales or any job, I always felt like the outsider, like I hadn't built or earned their trust yet. I'm not part of the crew or part of the team yet. I have to kind of earn my way into that. And, asking people about like how did they get into this role, like what things have they seen, like what changes in the company has happened, and like what's the process for doing, arranging a team outing, or do we have to go to the drinks on a Friday? Because I used to be somebody that was very I used to have very firm boundaries in my early days where, between 9 to 5, I did work and I dedicated myself to that company. But after 5 o'clock, I couldn't care about them or wanted to talk to them because that was my personal time. I wanted to go see my friends and do my stuff. But then I learned over time, like, in order to build those relationships, I do have to invest a little bit of time and I have to be available for some outings with the team on a Friday. And I always used to have this thing of like trying not to mix alcohol with work. Because sometimes what I used to hear from sales leaders was, well, when you go for a drink with somebody, that's when you really know who they are. Like, you'll hear their thoughts and stuff like that. And I was always like, I don't know if I want to do that. But, within moderation and everything's been fine and cool and after that. But I think also helping people and getting to know people is a great way to build relationships. So, over the past few years in the pandemic, I connected to a lot of CEOs that were adapting or pivoting their business. And, I had free time in my calendar and people reached out to me and said, hey, Neil, I run this company. I see that you do your own business. Would you mind if we connected? I just wanted to pick your brain on stuff. And in these sort of conversations, Fabio, I'd learn about people building platforms, companies, their strategy, and I'd learn a hell of a lot, which I could then take into my company. And then sometimes, they said, oh, I'm having this problem with this salesperson, or, I'm thinking about the SDR model and getting our first SDRs in and providing consultancy and advice. But I did this all free. But in return, they would always find projects later down the line and reach back out to me and say, hey, Neil, I've got this project where they need some SDR training, or they need an SDR coach, or, I'm speaking to another CEO, he's thinking about a go-to-market strategy. Do you mind giving him some time? And this would get me paid gigs and employments. And, ultimately, I'd always ask these questions of these people like, why are you helping me? And a lot of them would say is, you're a nice guy. You're human. You're not all about the money. You understand stuff. You give advice. And I even spoke to a CEO of a company called Willow, a guy called Ludwig. And when I join the meeting now, I always start at the beginning. If I'm speaking to a CEO, I brush their ego a little bit, Fabio. I'm like, oh, great. Lovely to meet you, Mr. CEO. And, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. I've heard so much about you. But this time around, Fabio, he did it to me. And he was like, Neil, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you. And I was like, okay, he's just being nice. He said, no, it's really nice to finally meet you. And I was like, do you mind me asking why you're saying it in that way? And he says, me and my team take a lot of your advice, all the content you put on LinkedIn, all the advice in your approach to sales. We talk about it daily in our company and in our meetings. And I was like, I haven't even met this guy yet, and he's saying this sort of stuff, but it's that relationship building and like, working with your team, asking them how they're going. It really pays dividends to be that kind, nice person, because it can go to companies or go into rooms that you've never even entered in before, So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all about that relationship building. But, like with yourself from SensorFact and then moving into BizzMine, what has it been like with the transition from leaving that company for being there for a while and then coming into this new business? How is that life going for you?
I think at this point, the change, it was very organic. Should there comes a point where the fruit is ripened and need to be harvested. So, in fact, there was a moment to step up from SensorFact and focus into perhaps a more complex solution that will probably hit very specific type of industry, such as I mentioned, the medical device manufacturing, pharmaceutical, such as logistical, chemical, etc. Because I found the need of engaging a prospect, perhaps hunting if it's necessary, like it's happening as we speak, because as I mentioned to you previously, I'm working towards filling my pipeline. So at the moment, I find myself not just inquiring and having the first talk with the prospect, but inviting for the first meeting, qualified, and then moving forward to the first highlight demo, perhaps if necessary a second demo, and if I find necessary, I bring in product engineering on board so we can deep dive in the solution. So this gives me a kind of an ownership of the whole sales cycle of what am I doing. It is not just about arranging appointments or maybe having the first meeting and then pass it over the leads/deal to the account manager stuff. I am fully responsible of the success of the deal in this job. And I've actually wanted to shout out a thank you to Peter, the Brabander, which is the CEO/founder of the BizzMine, already since 18 years. Very successful in Asia, American, and Benelux. And at the moment, I'm facing the challenge/beauty of opening up the Italian market. So, I'm the first and the only Italian so far within the company opening up the market. So in a way, testing a bit the market, see what works and what not, what is already in place, who are the competitors, and all that stuff. That probably you know what I'm talking about. So that gives me a bit of excitement, a bit of insecureness, but a lot of adrenaline and a lot of determination as well. Go back to the word I've used it before.
I love that. And you know what? There's something that I'd love for us to elaborate a little bit further on is because, you know, we get a lot of great SDRs and BDRs from around the world like yourself come onto this show. And we talk about, you know, the day-to-day, what we do. And a lot of it is very similar. But what I want to kind of focus on is the nuances of working in different regions and different markets. So as you mentioned, you're going through like a hardship and a beauty of launching this service within an Italian market. What is it like as an Italian working in an Italian region and trying to do business with Italian prospects? What things have you noticed different or trends that you've seen when doing business in Italy?
Every market has its own challenge, surely. And I think it's like looking at the grass of the neighbor is always greener. So we all we all think that, I mean, performing a sales in the Netherlands versus, another country, the one you are already focusing in might be easier, but it's not true. I think every country has its own challenge. And I think it's just a matter of being consistent and don't give up again. So I'm facing a lot of gatekeeper. I'm facing a lot of challenge. There are life issues like, post-COVID pandemic versus the war that's happening that has an impact to many organizations that I'm trying to reach out. So take in consideration that I think Italy is also a country that probably the digitalization, from my point of view, it's starting or it's happening. So there's still a lot of work that need to be developed in a way. So that leaves me to face some challenge to reach out to the person I do want to talk to, or when I do reach out to the person I want to talk to, then try to understand who is the decision maker ultimately, and will they happily and proudly present the solution to their decision maker. So there are a little bit of limitations sometimes, but I'm pleased to see that there is a good feeling when I speak about the solution. So meaning the intention or the perception towards the solution, the platform, or the capability of the solution versus the benefit that the solution will bring it to their own organization. Yeah, it's spot on. I do see this as a great start. Of course, from now on, that I need to penetrate. I need to conquer a bit the market. I need to really break that stone. So it will probably grow for me because I don't know if I mentioned Neil, but ultimately for the we spoke about the beneficial that this solution might have to the company for the manufacturer per se, but we haven't spoke about the beneficial that for the personal value that could actually bring to the employer within the organization, which could be simplify his work, clarify the tasks and the activity, be able to see and have control of what is the task and the due date and deadlines and stuff. So as a personal point of view, the candidate I speak to, it can only be say, yes, thank you. Thanks for reaching. Actually, I was very much looking forward to someone like you to call me today. But ultimately, we need to overcome the challenge of making a decision or moving forward to that things and not leaving just as a beautiful idea. Oh, that would be nice but just make it concrete and see what exactly stopped that of moving forward with it. So as I'm discovering the market, I will probably happy to have a chat with you in a year time from now to see whether
See how it's going and like how it's growing, right? And again, for
indeed.
And again, thank you for giving us the insight, because, you know, going into a new market, but understanding those nuances is very important. And again, for our listeners, watching, subscribers, if you're currently working those Italian markets or you've been doing it for a while, like if you've got any tips for Fabio, please make sure that you put them in the comment section below, or put them in the comment sections within our podcast as well. Because I remember, like, when I was an SDR and I was the SDR for the whole of Europe, Italy was one of my markets. And I was working with Brendan, my AE, and he could speak Italian because his wife was Italian. And we would have a lot of conversations where he would then go in to converse with them in Italian. And obviously I don't speak it, so I didn't understand it. And I would sometimes feel that the conversation got very heated, or perhaps they were having an argument of some sort. And then it would end with them laughing at the end of it. And I'd look at Brendan and be like, what were you guys speaking about? He said, oh, you know, we were talking about what we got up to in the weekend. We're talking about the businesses. And I said, oh, it sounds like you were fighting. He said, no, they're just very passionate when they're speaking and when they're putting a point across to each other. And I was like, oh, okay. And it was very new and daunting for me. And you know, what we also found was that within Italy, unless we had other customers that we could reference that were in Italy as well, you know, it may be hard to convince some of the senior stakeholders and decision makers. And I'm talking about, you know, 12, 13 years ago. And in terms of, as you mentioned, digitalization, there was still a concept that things are very, you know, manual, and people prefer to keep these in and weren't happy so much to automate things back then. But to your point now, we're, you know, a decade later, going into these experiences, speaking to the company where they're happy to have a conversation with you because they've been waiting for a guy like you, it's very warming to hear. And, you know, in a year's time, definitely let's find out like what happened and what was a success of launching into those markets.
What did it work? What it didn't? Yes.
Yeah, you know, what worked, what didn't work as well. And any tips and advice, please let us know, ladies and gents. But another piece that I want to come into, like, as a cornerstone for our show today is, at the beginning of the show, Fabio, I went to you as like, are there any key topics you want to discuss today? And you're somebody that I can sense has a level of emotional intelligence within you, and having that human aspect is important to you. And, you know, as SDRs and BDRs, we do a job which can be very repetitive times. You know, we have KPIs, we're supposed to book meetings. But what are the typical things that go through your mindset? And, you know, like as an SDR day to day, how do you manage those sort of emotions? And how do you keep yourself on track? And I'm really curious to know if any of your yoga practices help with this as well.
Yeah, it does. Yes, I can tell you straight away, yes, and I tell you why. Well, the way I manage my day to day, indeed, I keep myself positive, and I could probably couldn't agree more with what you just said a moment ago. Yeah, you could visualize it as well, probably through this video already. I'm very people person and self-motivating myself. So when there is a no day, which I guarantee there are many no days, of course. Yeah, I get distracted. I change activity, and maybe instead of, you know, doing the exact same thing, I try to keep my mind busy by doing other tasks or activity that I will need to perform during the day, or maybe just have a break, have a walk, or yeah, I don't know, if there is like a moment of cloud. Maybe if I know that I need to step into the shop, buy something for later, I do that later, because that fresh air, that little walk, it will probably, you know, reinvigorate, regenerate myself, and I know that it's also something that is done, but at the same time, I also regain that sense of lightness or energy, which I need to do my job. Yoga per se, I do because I think it helps me controlling my mind. I'm a mind thinker, so I never stop spinning. So I think I do find that sense of beauty when I concentrate, and I only concentrate that. So I really am able to empty my mind and leave myself with, you know, deep breathing in out. So then you can actually feel your body, you know, and sense of gratitude as well, in a way that will probably, bring me back to a perfect point to start the following day. And even a good sleep, because without it, you will see the difference. Otherwise, it's very important.
Hell yeah. I kind of like put our body akin to like a car, right? If you put the wrong fuel in the car, it's either going to break down, the engine's going to seize up, and it's not going to be able to operate. And putting the right fuel in terms of how you keep yourself healthy, like what you put into your mind, and, lack of sleep or thereof will, hinder that vehicle from moving forward. So I agree with you. It's very important to how you speak to yourself, what you feed yourself, and, how you rest yourself as well. And a topic, where you're saying those no days, it happens to everyone, right? We all get days of rejection. We all get days of where things aren't working out. We don't book those meetings and stuff like that. And breathing is an exercise I use to like you said, balance yourself out to try and, keep on going. But for somebody that does experience, a lot of us as SDRs, no and rejection a lot, how do you experience that and how do you handle it and how do you get yourself back on form, Fabio?
How do I experience now? Surely it's different than our experience in the past, because probably in the past, at the beginning, I was affected by it. I was genuinely sad-ish in a way, like, what happened? People were asking me, what happened? So you were this it was even difficult to communicate what was the actual reason, because you feel like you didn't know how to deconstruct that feeling, because it was, it was kind of too personal. And I think when you take that too personal, or on a personal point of view, that will affect you, and that will make you sad-ish, as I mentioned. That will give you the feeling that you're unable, incapable, or not good enough to do what you are doing. So you just need to look out of the box. So basically, if this is your work day and it's full of no, just look outside. Just look outside, keep some fresh air. And I think just being able to move forward without get affected or contaminated by the previous day or the previous no, or whatever is the negative that comes around. We are human, and I probably agree. I'm the first one, which I found myself, probably something I can share with you, Neil.
Please.
As you know, SDR, always connected to one another, even if they change company or they move from different company, there's always that 3-5 minutes call along the day with the SDR friend or ex-colleagues that probably you connected very well. And I think that capability of coaching or quoting, of motivating someone for a couple of more minutes, it self-reflected myself. So very often, sharing a quote, sharing an insight or something that could probably help another sales or business development representative, which is a friend of mine, it affected myself as well. So it's kind of self-coaching while you coach, while you motivated someone.
I freaking love that. Do you know what? That really struck a chord with me. Like when I asked you the question of like, how do you handle this rejection? How do you deal with it? And you said, how it affects me is different to how it affected me in the past. That is so freaking powerful, dude. Where you said, in the past, you would have taken it personally and it would have demotivated you, making you think you're not worthy enough. And then understanding that, you have grown as a person since then and you manage it in a much more mature way. And I love, that peer-to-peer coaching where, the best way to learn something is to teach something what you've just learned. So if it's a quote, if it's a strategy, or if it's a way to do it. And I remember when we first connected a few weeks back, you were telling me about your day, and then we were talking about, strategies on cold calling or, sending out information to each other. And I asked you today, how have things been since then? You said, improving. And that's what I love to hear. That's the best way to help yourself, by helping other people. So, having that human element, we're all in, I'm not going to say that old quote of we're all in this together, but we're all experiencing similar things in different ways. And it's great to connect with minds and share those experiences. And I think that's the coolest thing about sales, is sharing your experiences and then learning from each other. But Fabio, it's been an absolute honorary pleasure to have you on the show today. And I wanted to know, what 3 bits of advice would you give to a younger version of yourself who's just about to embark on this journey?
Probably we have mentioned, thank you for asking me that. I think it's a good question. Some of the things we probably have mentioned, but I will probably state, surely work towards a sustainable mindset, which I think it need to really be absorbed, so that you can stay, you can keep your good work steady, but more importantly, you can learn from the rejection and the negativity. So I think that's a very, very powerful thing.
Yep.
Then I think I would say be human, stay human, remain human, because you're not a robot. So that should be easier. Because it will help you engaging and show more interest to the person you're speaking to, which nowadays I think prospects receive numbers of phone calls, and I agree with them. Would I be happy if I receive many phone calls? No, but if we get that good, human pitch of 10, 20, 30 seconds at the very beginning of the call, I think that that is 50% of our job.
Solid advice there.
And the last, probably I would just say don't give up easily. I will repeat that one because I think it's also another one that plays the role constantly. Don't give up easily. Stay focused and positive.
Hell to the yeah, Fabio. Thank you so much, my dude. And are there any shout outs that you'd like to give on today's show?
Well, I probably said, but I would like to wish a good luck and a great success to BizzMine, since it's just something that I'm actually, initiating in the market. So thank you to Peter Barbrandes, Sebrin, which is the CEO, and all BizzMine family who have shown trust and willingness to develop together.
Hell yeah. Salute to the BizzMine crew out there as well. And a big thank you to all of our listeners and watchers and subscribers on joining us on Fabio's beautiful journey today. Just a gentle reminder, if you're listening to this in your local podcast platform, please make sure that you give us a rating and a subscribe. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe. And if you've got any questions for Fabio, please put some comments in below, especially if you had experience working in those Italian markets to give him a winning chance. And again, if you want to connect with Fabio, you'll find his LinkedIn URL in the show notes below. But Fabio Menga, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much. I wish you a successful, happy and humanly week possible moving forward. And most importantly, Fabio, happy selling, sir.
Happy selling to everybody. Thank you.